Hi everybody. It's just the wrong way around there. You know how it happens. Sorry, I'm just going to get a little bit close to the camera because I'm not quite hooked on properly on my device. Just a little bit late to the game. Morning Gina, how are you? Lovely to see you everybody. How you doing? Oh, we've got some gorgeous warm weather here. It's a little bit surprising because this is what happens, is that we're still in the throes of winter, but then you get these sort of warm days that suddenly you're like, oh, hang on, I'm wearing too many clothes and I'm just a bit hot and sweaty, a little bit glowy. Anyway, always delighted to have some warm weather because it's been so cold here. Anyway, firstly, how are you all? And thank you so much for all your lovely comments to my reading last week. I just got so many messages from people privately and obviously on some of the comments on the actual reading, and you know, ultimately what I realized was that so many people really appreciated that I wasn't lecturing, I wasn't on my pulpit, that I was just really kind of just trying to express my perspective, okay? And all that I was asking was an open and reflective mind and heart. So I'm so grateful that what I was trying to express was received in the way that it was sort of sent out. Because, you know, I think sometimes when we speak our truth, it can be a bit nerve-wracking because you're just never quite sure how it's going to be received. But again, all that I'm sharing here is my experience, okay? My experience and my perspective. You can go out and find whatever you like, wherever you like, that serves you and you understanding where you are, you know, on your journey and what supports you and all the rest of it. I'm just expressing things that I found along the way that have really helped me kind of question. I'm a real critical thinker. Listen, when I was at school, I just didn't enjoy school very much. The only subject that I really enjoyed was sort of geography because it was about the world and culture. And I realise now it's because a lot of what I'm interested in is sort of critically thinking, oh God, that's the dogs wanting to come in. Can you hear them? No, maybe not. I think they could be all right. Anyway, so I realised that, you know, I am a critical thinker and I love learning in my own way. I'm really a self-directed learner. And when I come across something that I go, oh, that doesn't quite make sense to me, I kind of go and digging and investigate and I investigate until it makes sense for me, until I kind of find peace. And it's a bit like the oyster shell with a bit of grit in. It's a bit like that for me until I kind of get the pearl of wisdom from the experience. Oh, here come the dogs now. Anyway, I'm not going to let them in until they start scratching at the door. Anybody who has dogs will know that dogs just want to be with you. I know, darling. I know. Anyway, that's Archie. All right. So listen, today, before I kick off on the reading, I was up at 4:45 this morning because all week I have been sort of jib-jabbed. I shouldn't even use that word. I've already set the tone, haven't I? I've been, you know, there's been this going on in my mind. And it was all about something I read maybe 2-3 years ago. And I couldn't remember, I knew where I'd read it. I know where I'd come across the information. It was on reading about sort of alternative treatments around cancer. I didn't have cancer, but I was reading about it. Why was I reading about it? I don't know. My mum had breast cancer, but I've always, you know, I'm always interested. So I'm always looking and learning and on all the rest of it. Anyway, I had come across this particular report and people had said, you know, go and read it because it's quite interesting. And all week I have literally had this, it's almost like something just sitting here going, could you go and find that report? Can you go and find that report? Can you go and find that report? Anyway, this morning at 4:45, I was like, all right, I'm going to go and have a look. Anyway, I went online and within a millisecond I found it. Okay. So I'm just going to put all this information out there. Okay. You can do whatever you like with it. Okay. All I'm asking before I get to the reading is to have, and the reading is very relevant to this. Okay. Which is why I'm bringing this up first, obviously, because I picked the cards last night and, you know, I never quite know. I just have to trust. And so anyway, I'm gonna tell you what my experience is and sort of run you through a few things, and then I'm just gonna kind of leave it here. All right, and then I'm gonna get on with the reading. So the report that I found is something called, and again, you can research it, you can find out lots of information about it, and I would encourage you to do that, okay? It is called the Flexner Report. It was written by somebody called Abraham Flexner, and it was written at the turn of the 20th century, and it was funded, I think, and I again, I'm, you know, don't hold me to absolutely everything. You'll have to go and do your own research on this, but certainly, Rockefeller, John Rockefeller was involved, funded it, and so did Andrew Carnegie, and they had done it because I believe Rockefeller, who was obviously making a lot of money in the oil industry, was increasingly finding ways to, you know, make money or do something with the petrochemicals that were creating plastic. And anyway, I'm not quite sure how it all came about, but basically he started finding information about, you know, vitamins that were helping people with scurvy. It was very kind of basic. And then this report came out, which basically said that the only real medicine that should be considered was allopathic medicine. Okay, so until that point, medicine had been this massive spectrum. Okay, they had, when you were being trained as a doctor, there was chiropractic hospitals, osteopathic, there were herbal hospitals, there were homeopathic hospitals, there were, you know, there was a lot of Native American medicine. I'm just talking about America, okay. There was a lot of Native American kind of medicine all woven in there. Now, what the Flexner Report did do was it did kind of eliminate some of the snake oil salesmen, and it did do some good. But what it did was it kind of created this very standardized model of medicine, okay, that then became funded through patenting, is that even a word? But, you know, patenting, you know, drugs, and creating this whole sort of system of training medical personnel, okay? And anybody that did anything out with that was considered a quack, or, well, we've all heard that you know, that term quack, or, you know, but basically they were demonized. And so all these sort of, you know, other training establishments were shut down because there was no longer any funding for it, okay? And basically we then, you know, created this very standardized model of medicine, which we have today, okay? Certainly here in Australia, we have a system as in the UK, you know, we've got these standardized systems which are funded by the government, okay? And that's the only kind of medical treatment that you can access if you're sick and get paid for by your government, if you understand what I'm saying. However, as you know, many of us access, I tell you, I was trying to think of all my friends and going, do I know anybody that hasn't accessed at some point, you know, massage, acupuncture, herbalist medicine, naturopathy, you know, homeopathy, nutritional health, Ayurvedic, chiropractic, osteopathy? Actually, honestly, I don't think I do. And that all has to come out of our pocket, okay? It's not funded by governments. I think there's a teeny tiny bit that you can, like here, if you've got a chronic health issue, you can get 5, you know, subsidized treatments with somebody on that kind of line. But that's it, okay? And all I know when I was out in the Central Desert is in the hospital in Alice Springs, they have got traditional healers working there because what they do works. Okay, so they'll be in there and they'll go, oh well, what's wrong with them is they've got something stuck in here and I can get it out. And you know, it doesn't involve surgery. It's like mind-blowing, but they're in there. And I always remember meeting this woman when we were traveling in Western Australia, and she'd been a midwife up in Cooktown, which is right at the top end. And there was an Aboriginal woman, they were having to give birth in hospitals, and she was helping them. And the woman's, you know, the new mum's milk hadn't come in. And they were like, you're right, we'll give you the, and she was like, no, get the old woman to come. So anyway, apparently the old woman came, she told them what was going on. Anyway, they were off and they came back with these, what she called them, milkworms. They were these huge slugs, okay, they had dug out of the ground, of the silty sands, I think, I'm not sure. But anyway, brought them into hospital, gave them to the woman had them, and her milk was in within, you know, half an hour, let's say, a very short space of time. So that goes on here. Also, I mean, I've always worked with a kinesiologist. I mean, I've had my own health issues, as many of you know, but I had a son that was born with really chronic asthma and was hospitalized, you know, within the first couple of years of his life, quite seriously. And we were on that, you know, Ventolin, prednisolone, you know, steroids, that was our kind of pattern. And I was kind of doing everything, you know, I started doing herbalist, no, you're not coming in, herbalism, that didn't quite work, homeopathy, that didn't, you know, I just was trying everything. Eventually I found a great kinesiologist here, and she's German, and she's a doctor, she's a trained doctor, okay? And which is what I love, because she's got both aspects, okay? She knows sometimes that we need, you know, she was an osteopathic surgeon. So she was the one that would be flown into Autobahn accidents in Germany and would have to make the decision on who she's working, you know, who she's going to save first. So, you know, a highly skilled, incredibly intelligent woman. Anyway, I always remember her saying to me that, you know, some of the greatest medicine that still exists is in Russia, because you know, the Russians did not have funding in the way that Western medicine did, and so they had to just do what works. So, you know, it was often they would be in energy medicine, homeopathy, bioresonance therapy, I think, came out of Russia. You know, simple things like oil swilling, I don't know if you've ever heard of that, to get toxins out, you know, has come from, you know, Russia. And it's doctors who've just been trying to find things that actually work, versus I'm being funded and this is the paper I'm going to say that tells you this, and I'm going to patent that, and then cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. So all I'm trying to do is create an awareness that we have a very, very, very narrow model of medicine. And what I was really told to kind of bring to the table is that currently, in the situation we have in this pandemic, is that we've put all our eggs in one basket, in as much as we're putting all our trust and hope in, you know, all these, you know, things that are going in our arm, in the hope that that's going to save us. But yet, there are all these other incredible models of medicine which are not being tapped into. I'll give you an example. I was at a basket weaving workshop recently, and the woman, I was talking about my allergies that I have, and she said, oh God, I've got an allergy to bee pollen. She said, you know, quite recently, she said, I was at, you know, with a friend, and we'd gone around to somebody else's house for dinner, and while I was there I ate something and it had bee pollen in it, and she said I literally went into anaphylactics at a shot. It was like and the woman whose house we were at was a homeopath, and she literally went off to her box, she got out, I think it was Apis, came back, gave me one, done, absolutely fine, okay, absolutely fine. I was like, yeah. So I kind of feel like in the broader picture, I would just like, I mean, for me personally, and my recovery was not that medical model. I've always been very grateful that I found doctors who have always got a very integrative approach, okay? And so, I had a great doctor here who would, was suggesting integrative medicine, would always be going, she was also trained in herbalism, naturopathy. And so I was always given, a lot of options. So it's always opened up my picture. But certainly, when I was really sick, my sickness started with a kind of a tick bite. And then there was a bit of a menopause autoimmune thing that kicked in as well. So I kind of had two things kind of going on. But the real treatment that medical profession have for tick is antibiotics, which work if you catch it in the first week, okay? Beyond that, not so good. And so, but there were still people that, when I were on all these sites, that were still doing antibiotics years down the line with Lyme disease. And I just found that cleaning up my diet, cleaning up my emotional health, doing some brain retraining was what got me well. And, I always remember I was actually been seeing at this integrative health clinic, and, I had a doctor and naturopath as well. And so I was working with these people to help me. And I always remember when I was in at the acupuncture, because they, would shift me to all these different people. And I was at the acupuncture and she said, we had a really interesting morning meeting this morning because, the doctor was telling us how, he's had these patients that he's, treated over the years, for various things, cancers, etc. And who've literally just gone, that's it, I've had enough. Get your hands off me. And walked away. And then he sort of bumped into them on the beach, 2 years later, and they're fully recovered. And they just started walking the beach and, I don't know, looking after themselves better. But they just stopped treatment. And that always stuck in my mind. And it was 6 months later that I did the same thing. They were, I was on IV drips for vitamin C. So, here's what I'm saying is that, it's no one thing. You have to really listen to your body. But, there was just too much happening. And I just went, it's enough. And I walked away. I literally walked away and said, please just get your hands off me. And I took, responsibility for, my health. And I suppose in some ways, I understand why people are heavily invested in this. I do. I really do. Because that's what we've been taught to do. And there will be value, and there is some value, and there always will be value in allopathic medicine. And, if I had a car accident, I would absolutely want to be in a hospital. So I'm not demonizing it in any way. But I do want to bring a broader understanding into the medical model, and that we see a very narrow part of it, and can we widen our knowledge from our experiences. I know many of us who might be watching this or out in the world, friends of mine who've all had varying degrees of experience in a girlfriend that had treatment for cancer, and then they said, right, you need to be on this for the rest of your life, and she was like, actually this doesn't feel right, I'm not going to be on it for the rest of my life, I'm coming off it, doesn't feel right for me. So just listening and, doing what feels right for you. And so I'm just bringing this to the table. That's what I'm bringing. I have no judgment over what you are choosing to do at the moment, but I'm just bringing the Flexer report to you to bring a deeper understanding of the model, the current medical model that we have and how we got to it. Anyway, getting on with today's reading, we have got an overarching theme which comes from Dream Seed deck from Peregrine Costa. Here they are, in this little bag here, gorgeous little bag. Anyway, the overarching theme is unfolding, and it does feel a little bit like the onion, doesn't it? The peeling back of the layers. And, you know, the truth is like that seed. It feels like, you know, it's always there. The truth is there. It's just like, you know, me and my research. It's always looking, going, oh, that doesn't feel right. Oh, I'm not sure about that. Yeah, that feels right. That feels right. And you're taken to the next place. And then you kind of process that information and you integrate it. And then you go, yeah, that feels, oh, no, I'm going deeper. And off you go again. And it feels like this week we're going to be doing some of that. It might be just a week of investigation, of listening and going, yeah, that just doesn't make sense to me. Let me do some research here. So I feel like we're in this unfolding this week, okay? We're in this opportunity to unpeel layers. And that will look very different for all of us. Okay, card number 1, 2, 3. But as always, we've got a bit of a theme. So you can read this as a whole card reading, or you can just read, you can just see it as, 1, 2, and 3. So card number 1, we have got a card from Caroline Myss, archetype cards. I've brought out a few archetype cards, actually. I just realised that. Card number 1 is the priest. Okay. The light attribute of the priest, okay, facilitates spiritual commitment, serves as a channel of spiritual energy. Defined by ritual or of ordination, the official capacity to facilitate spiritual vows, commitments to divine authority, okay, serves as a spiritual channel of divine energy for others, must represent the teachings through personal example. That's what I'm here for. Which is why I always share personal stories, because at the end of the day, it's listen, I'll always share what's happened to me and the conversations I've had, because that's the only perspective I could share for. I'm not an expert on anybody else's story or anybody else's experience. You know, this is why I think it's so important to always speak from the personal. And certainly, that was one of the things that I was taught by the Indigenous people here. Personal is powerful. Use your personal. Always make it personal. Always we could never write any of our essays in third party. It was always in the personal. In the personal. Third party, is that right? I don't know if I said that right, but you know what I mean. You couldn't do it in that slightly, you know. And one saw, and we can see from, it was always like I. Use the I. So, shadow priest manifests as the inability to live according to one's own teachings, okay, especially in lapses of personal morality or using ordained authority to control people for personal gain. Look for a lifetime commitment to serving others by facilitating their spiritual rituals. Well, listen, I mean, I think there are enough examples of people who are, you know, who have, you know, professed and are preaching and then doing something else behind closed doors. And I guess if I was to say, if you've picked this card, this is like, look at where you have this, you know, living with inside you. Where do you get preachy? I have to say that was the one thing a lot of people said to me, thank you for not preaching. I think I said that already, but you know, it's like, who are we to be preaching, really? It's like, just, you know, your life is your book. Your who you are and the way and your tone and everything is really your sermon. And I feel that, you know, when we stand, you know, clutching something and pointing to it, going, this is, and it's absolute, just like these cards. I mean, you know, if they make sense, you're great. If they don't, move on. You know, it's like, you know, when you're dogmatic and rigid in your thinking and demanding and demonizing, I often think there's an element of demonizing that goes on when you're preaching. You know, you have to go, well, I'm right and they're wrong. And so ultimately, I feel it's around really, you know, talking about your personal experience, you know, talking about your fears, talking about your humanness and your humanity, and not being seduced by that perfectionism and that shine about getting it all right because it doesn't exist, and you'll inevitably have the carpet pulled from underneath your feet. So that's card number 1 this week, the priest. So just watch that, okay? Watch that and see how it lives within you. Card number 2 is from Wisdom of the Oracle, Colette Baron Reid. I did say that the other archetype were Caroline Myss's cards. Okay. The card that we have is mending. I love that they're mending in it. They're mending bunting. Okay. Forgiveness, making amends, healing after arguments. Okay, so the first thing that's coming up with me, I'm not even going to read this. The first thing that is coming up with me around this is a lot of what's going on for me is this divisiveness, trying to divide people. And I am absolutely doing my hardest, and I know there's a lot of other girlfriends who might have different views to me, who are doing their hardest to lean in and go, might not be my experience, and I might not agree with you because I have a different experience and a different belief system. But I'm going to find something that we have in common that we'll celebrate. Okay, I'm not going to fall out with you. I'm not going to fall out with you. I'm not going to fall out with you. And here's also my experience. I'm not going to go into details because it's still quite fresh, but here's my experience with forgiveness is that when my experience is when I have withheld love for somebody because of what they've done to me, okay? And let me tell you, it can be really horrid, okay? Really horrid. When they've done something really horrible to me, when I've held on to that, punished them by withholding my love, kept them in a dungeon and gone, I will punish you, okay, when I've done that little nitty gritty oyster shell thing, the grit is just, and what I realized was that in order to move forward, I actually had to forgive myself. I had to forgive myself and my humanness, okay? And go, you know what? Yeah, I'm angry and I'm resentful and I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off, I'm angry. How dare you treat me like that? I'm pissed off and I'm angry. And I'm holding a grudge. And I'm resentful. And I'm punishing you. Yeah, I had to take ownership of that. And as soon as I did, and as soon as I spoke that to the person involved, it just all calmed down. It all calmed down. And it just doesn't consume me anymore. It doesn't take up any space anymore. But I had to get to that point. And how I got there was by shoring up so much self-love and self-compassion and self-kindness for my humanness, okay? I don't think you can get to a point of forgiveness and moving forward unless you are actively shoring up a great deal of self-compassion regularly. If you are making yourself wrong all the time, you are not going to be able to extend a hand, an olive branch to somebody else. You are not going to be able to own your own humanness because the shame will consume you, okay? So we have to work at, the first process for me is the boundaries first. Let me work out who I am and what my stuff is. Let me work on, my stuff, filling up myself with self-love, self-compassion, being kind to myself, being generous to myself, dealing with my perfectionism, my expectations and all of that. And then when you're filled up, you've probably seen that in my little meditation last night, and my little healing things that I was doing. You have to fill yourself up before you can give anybody anything. And I had got to that point that I was able to mend something because I had done enough shame resilience building on myself, that I didn't get consumed by it, that I didn't make myself this horrible human. I just made myself a human. Okay. So the mending is, if you are having, really contentious discussions or arguments or whatever with people who are committed to misunderstanding you and your view, you might need to step away. This card's going to speak to that. Sorry, every time I bang the table, my alarm clock goes. I've got this little bell on it. It's like, you've hit the red button, Jen. But yes, you might need, to take some time away. But if you can fill yourself up with enough self-love that you can, find compassion for yourself and compassion for their view. They are just where they are, but, protect yourself. But this is a time to mend and heal if you've had a bit of a fight with somebody over their belief and what they're doing. See if you can come together and find something in common that you can celebrate. Okay, find something, no matter how tiny it is. Okay, each time we are hurt and allow the hurt to pass through us without understanding and integration, we accumulated an unwanted burden. Tell me about it. In the dungeons, like reptiles in the dungeon. This keeps us chained to the very things we need to heal. It's the truth. The memories, the echoes of resentments, and the arguments that we rehearse over and over. Now is the time for mending rifts, healing wounds, and letting go of old hurts in order to reclaim your power. Now is the time to forgive, to release, to make peace, and to make amends to others. Set yourself free. Listen, I have a good deal more that I would say about this, and if you want to do some work around that, then I would encourage, maybe reaching out and doing some one-on-one work, because I have a lot more to share. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, that is card number 2. And if you're reading this in a line, we'll get to the end. And the last archetype, we keep getting this card. It keeps coming out of the deck, and it's the Village. And the Village card, oh crikey, where is it, Jen? I should have pulled up, but I didn't. But the Village card is basically always, it's like that tribal consciousness, okay, which exists in our root chakra, okay, which is very much survival. Oh my God, I've got to be part of a gang because they're going to save me. And, I need to be part of this belonging. And the Village is when you suddenly go, ooh, actually, the protection I'm being offered involves me having to give up something of myself. And I'm just not prepared to do that anymore, okay? And so it feels most like home, but equally it feels like, I don't want to give up who I am and my beliefs and all of that, because I'm going to have to in order to fit into this, to get this protection. And I'm just not going to do that. So the Village is an unspoken boundary exists. One most villagers do not want to cross. Hell yeah. Those through support you're leaving, you still hear whispers of doubt as you venture beyond its borders, leaving behind. Okay, so it's the very place you must leave in order to grow. And I kind of feel as humanity, that's where we slightly are. We've been very comfortable in this sort of, the blame, shame, rescuer kind of archetype thing going on. And, with the models that we've had and the systems that we had, they're comfortable. Everybody knows, okay, so, this is what I do. Go to school, go to university, then get a job, have a family, have the kids, then have the maybe, whatever, then have the grandkids, and then end. And that's a prescribed kind of path. And, while I'm doing that, go on holiday, probably 2 holidays a year, maybe have 2 cars, always, trying to grow and expand my fortune and, access, my medical. And then, inevitably, the universe wakes us up with some crisis or another, and everything starts to sort of go, oh, shit. And that is often when we kind of wake up and we go, oh yeah, this whole thing that I've been doing, this little treadmill I've been on, it's not working so much. No, it's not healthy, not feeling great. And we walk away from it. And so this is when it's like intimate, rooted, intergenerational, communal. Okay, when dark, small-minded, gossipy, trapped, restricted. That's all I'm going to say on that card. Okay, so the cards for the week, let me just run through them again. We have got unfolding, okay? We're just peeling back the layers to find the truth, okay? Truth within us, okay? And we're going to see probably more unfolding going on in the collective, okay? We'll kind of be going, oh my God, what's going on? There's more voices are going to be heard, more truth is going to be told. We've got card number 1, which is the priest archetype. It's like, you know, where are you getting a bit preachy, bit prideful and preachy, versus having humility and talking through your own personal experience, okay? Talking about your fears, owning your humanness, okay? This is like, just really, really watch that in within you. Card number 2, or just in general, mending, you know, find ways to keep the connection strong and to reach out to people you've maybe fallen out. I have done over the years, you know, so much reaching, circling back to people and going, you know what, my best self did not show up in this relationship or in this situation, and I am sorry. I'm really sorry. I was feeling this or I was feeling that. I've taken ownership of all of it. God, it's so bloody liberating. I can't tell you. Do some of that, because that will definitely help balance, you know, that egoic part that's wanting to sort of get ahead of itself in this energy. And the village. Walk away from what's not serving you. You know, we're here to grow, and that small rigid thinking, you know, just as I was talking right at the beginning about medicine, that very narrow-minded perspective, it's just not going to work anymore. It's just not going to work anymore. Anyway, I haven't had a sip of my tea yet. But listen, thank you so much for joining me. Just a reminder, it's the Flexner, Flexner report. He was called Abraham, and it's linked to Rockefeller and how the standardized allopathic medicine model kind of was created. And just, you know, go and have a look at it. Go and have a look at it, you know. Don't listen to me. Just go and do your own research. And as always, have a gorgeous week. I might drop in, I might not. I'll see how I feel. But sending you lots and lots and lots of love. As always, have a beautiful week.